Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Friday Ramblings. It is time to ramble because it is Friday, so let's get right down to it. We're going to discuss a very important storyline to Marvel comic fans. Although the large gap of time it has been since the story was first published, folks may be overlooking it. And that is the Contest of Champions. Dun dun dun! Now, what makes the Contest of Champions so important in that it is this. It was the first real crossover event story told by Marvel. Now, these things come out once a year. Heck, sometimes twice a year. Depending on how big the event is. They'll do two smaller events and have them almost overlap at times. But this was where it all began. Now, unlike modern times where crossover events will involve a main miniseries, auxiliary miniseries, tie-in issues with the main books, and it takes, 30 issues or more. Heck, if it's a multi-month, if it's 4 or 5 month thing, you end up with a freaking library of tie-in issues. This was a very simple 3-issue miniseries story. Nice, straight to the point. And it was done as one limited series. Let's get down to it. Officially published as Marvel's Superhero Contest of Champions. It was published from June to August 1982 by Marvel Comics and was written by Martin Grunwald with art by John Romita Jr. and Bob Layton. Basically, 3 seasoned staff members of Marvel who knew what they were doing and were familiar with writing most of these characters. Now, eventually there was, in 1999, a 5-issue limited series called Contest of Champions 2. However, it was not directly connected to the story of Contest of Champions, but was basically reviving the title. We may go through that story another time. It kept the idea of hero versus hero for the sake of an alleged prize. But, it was more like a spiritual sequel than any kind of direct storyline sequel. But again, that's okay. Now, the first time that the story was pitched and scripted, it was actually intended to be a celebration of the 1980 Summer Olympics held in Moscow, depicting Marvel superheroes engaging in various Olympic-style competitions. However, when the United States refused to participate in the Summer Games as a protest against the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in late 1979, the plan was called to a halt. And given that the comic was mostly completed, instead of scrapping the entire idea, they spent another 2 years tweaking the art and writing to make it a story unrelated to the Olympics. Let's break down the basics of the story, as I said, trying to remain as spoiler-free as possible. Backstory of the Contest of Champions is in the comic book Avengers, where the previous Korvac storyline had seen the Elder of the Universe, known as the Collector, killed. As such, a fellow Elder of the Universe, the Grand Master, challenges a hooded female initially called the Unknown, eventually revealed to be Death, to a game where if the Elder of the Universe, the Grand Master, wins, the Collector will be restored to life. Instead of going at each other directly or using some sort of standardized game that would, by its nature, heavily favor the Grand Master, hence his term the Grand Master, the master of all things, at least all things competitive. The pair decided to instead use various superheroes from Earth as pawns, the goal being to collect the 4 pieces of a prize called the Golden Globe of Life. Now, it should be noted that since the prize being played for was the life of the collector, if the Grandmaster loses, the collector would remain dead for all eternity. The Grandmaster's team consists of Captain America from the Avengers, Talisman from Alpha Flight, Darkstar, a Russian superhero who had actually been a part of multiple teams, including the Champions of Los Angeles, Captain Britain, aka Brian Braddock, since there actually has been a couple different Captain Britons, Wolverine from the X-Men, Sasquatch, Daredevil, Sasquatch also being from Alpha Flight, She-Hulk, The Thing from the Fantastic Four, and new characters Defensor, Peregrine, and Blitzkrieg. Death's team consists of Iron Man, Russian superhero Vanguard, Iron Fist, Storm from the X-Men, Arabian Knight, Sabra, who is a hold on real quick, gotta double check my notes here, make sure I'm right, is an Israeli superhero heroine who has appeared in various team books in supporting roles several times in helping out the X-Men. The Invisible Girl, later Invisible Woman of the Fantastic Four, Angel from the X-Men, Black Panther, Sunfire from the X-Men, and the Collective Man, who's a Chinese superhero who has occasionally been an antagonist when he's being a, supporter of his Chinese government, which, hey, he is a Chinese citizen. It's what, a citizen of any country does. Along with new character Shamrock, a female Irish superhero. Thus, we get a series of various one-on-one matches. Ultimately, the storyline is written with the Grandmaster's team being successful. However, Death kind of takes a little bit of a loophole in it, stating that the Collector can only be resurrected if the Grandmaster takes his fellow Elder's place in the realm of the dead, with the character agreeing to the terms. Ultimately, however, it was revealed in an Avengers Annual that this was all part of a grander plan perpetuated by the Grand Master, as while in the realm of the dead, he's able to steal Death's power, and then via a further deception, forces the entity to banish all elders from her realm, effectively making them immortal. This would lead to an ongoing disdain between Death would have for the Grand Master and the rest of the Elders of the Universe by proxy. Now, we're not going to go through and tell you every single little win-loss, because as I said, we do want you to read the book. Even though technically I did spoil the ending, which I usually don't do, it's kind of important to understand its impact in Marvel, in that it was one of the first stories where Death was shown having a personality and a fully fleshed on idea that beings of enough cosmic significance could interact with her like a peer, as well as playing up with the classic literary trope that death does like to play games, especially ones where there is a wager, and that in the long term, it's not nice to try to cheat death. More significantly, though, is the fact that it did reconfigure the nature of the Elders of the Universe, showing that even when one dies, the other Elders, being some of the oldest beings in the universe and having ascended to cosmic significance, what some might call godhood, but, trying not to get too theological here, that they are capable of cheating death under the right circumstances, and eventually, with the sequel story in the Avengers Annual, flat out cheating death as a rule. Now, besides the full-on sequel, in more recent years, let's see, 2015 to be specifically, in the aftermath of the modern-day Secret War event, as there's actually a couple different events bandied under Secret War, which we will talk about soon, there was a event that worked on the same basic premise of the contest of champions between the Collector and the Grand Master, which served as a kind of spin-off sequel to that Secret War event. As well as, even after that, stories in the Avengers book that would feature the Grand Master and this idea of him challenging different supreme beings to this recruiting heroes as proxies, series of smaller duels, playing for pieces of, playing for points, sometimes involving grabbing alleged artifacts to decide a overall winner, is a formula that would be reused. Essentially, the Contest of Champions gave the Grandmaster a favorite game for him to challenge higher beings to, which is a cool thing. It established, in pro wrestling terms, which I like to think pretty much everything in, the idea of a trademarked gimmick match. Oh, it's a Grandmaster. Oh, he's being challenged by somebody of equal stature to him. I bet he's going to do something kind of like the Contest of Champions again, because he loves it. Still, all that aside, it is a very fun romp, and was one of the first examples of Marvel having heroes butting heads with each other, as well as an early story of heroes from different teams interacting and even working together in a makeshift team. So, from a historical level, from a reading fun level, this is a recommended title. You get a great cast of characters, a mix of basically everything that was important in the Marvel Universe in the year of 1982, but you get a story that in any decade is fun to read. Seeing characters not familiar with each other interact, the debut of new heroes who sadly really didn't go on to greater things. Some of them have been used here and there sporadically over the years, but mostly those heroes newly created for the series as not only a way to give it international flair, but kind of substitute for the original idea of it taking place at the Olympic Games, and thus a tie-in story to the Olympics. It was a thing. it's interesting to see them and recognize them for that purpose, that they are the remnants of that original plot point. Using, that they were international heroes created for the story to give it a global feel, even after it quit being about the Olympics. So, if you can find the comic, whether in a trade paperback format or online from a digital source, go ahead and read it. At 3 issues, it's not going to take you long to binge, which is a good thing. As for me, I'm going to go ahead and scoot off now. I know this episode is a little bit shorter than usual, but when you got a 3-issue story and you want to save a little something for the viewer to read later, you can't go super long. But that's the glory of the ramblings. It's as long as it needs to be. So, I'll see you in 7, as we'll have just a little bit more fun going on. Bye-bye, folks.